What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Rideshare Rodeo, gig economy news and interviews, sponsored by Para and ParaWorks. I'm your host, SJ. It's time to get it on.
Well, midnight headlight, blinding on a rain night, steep grade up ahead, slow me down and making no time. I gotta keep it rolling. Those are windshield wipers slapping out the tempo, breaking from the rhythm with the song on the radio. I gotta keep it rolling. Ooh, I'm driving my life away.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to another Rideshare Rodeo audio podcast, the original Rideshare Rodeo audio podcast. Love it, you guys. And episode number 243, we are creeping up on 250, and I don't know why. When I hit 100, it was a marker. 200, I think I kind of rolled past and didn't even make the biggest deal of it, but this 250 feels like something. So I'm loving getting up there. Thank you all for listening over the years. And thank you all who email and get involved and have asked to be on the podcast. And we brought you on. I've gotten to know so many amazing people. This week's episode, I'm going to play some pieces of a conversation I had with Stephanie Vigil. Stephanie will be at the August 5th event. So let's talk about that for a quick minute. Denver, Colorado, August 5th, 2023. We're going to be having a para rodeo town hall, and it's going to be at the Wash Park. What this is it's going to be Stephanie, our elected official. She's a freshman House member in the House of Representatives here in Colorado, and she is fighting for gig worker transparency and the right to challenge wrongful deactivations. The transparency part goes a little further. She's fighting for it on behalf of the drivers seeing full transparency, but the customers as well. Let's let the customers see a breakdown of where this money goes. The bill, SB 23-098, which you guys know I've talked about before, so I won't get into it too deep here, but what I will say is, for those that maybe have missed out, you can go back to previous episodes. You'll see it in the title of the episode of the podcast. Give it a listen. If you go back in the past 2-3 weeks, you'll find one or two. But here's the thing. So for those just wanting the quick brush over, SB 23-098 was her bill, and she had all of her people in line to get it onto the floor to have a vote. Now, two of her own party jumped ship, and the day that it was supposed to get the vote, decided that they were going to not let it get the vote. Not only were they going to vote against it, they voted it down so that it didn't have the chance to be seen by everybody and be voted on as it should have been. Not to mention, they also had pledged their allegiance to this bill and the party before. So this is a very crazy story. So we're going to be having Stephanie. We're going to have other politicians. We're going to have news. We're going to have union members, non-union members. We're going to have every side of the spectrum. So this is not, if you're thinking this is going to be a push for one thing. No, what this is something I've been talking about a lot lately, which is we can't change politics, but we need to arm our politicians with correct information and the feelings of the gig community. Because when do you write into a politician that you want something changed? When you're mad. Has anybody, and I'm going to challenge all of you here, many of you probably have never written to a politician in your life, and that's fine. But let's say that you were gonna. Do you think you'd do it when you're upset about something and want to see it changed? Or do you think you'd write them a thank you letter that just says, hey, thanks, you're doing a great job? Correct. You would only do it when you're upset about something. And this is what happens a lot of times. And this is why things go sideways so often, because sometimes politicians, they have their team, their staffing and stuff, and they open all the emails and letters and everything. they open them and read them, and they kind of prioritize as to what's coming for a vote on the floor and then make sure it's seen. A lot of times the politicians just kind of take a brief overview and then they kind of ask the opinion of their staffers saying, okay, so I just read the bullet points on SB 23098. I see what it is. How are the people responding to our office? And they'll say something like, well, let's say, and these are made up numbers, let's say 295 emails and 100 letters came in this week regarding that from drivers. Okay, what did they want? All of them wanted to be employees, or all of them hate the models and want to take these guys to court. And again, now I go back to the point I made before. You only write in when you're upset about something. So those of us doing well don't write in. Or those of us, a lot of us know there's changes that need to be made, and they will be made. The gig economy has been around for a while, but really, let's be honest, even the 10 plus years it's been around, it's the app-based gig economy, let's be specific. The 10 plus years it's been around, that's really the infancy of something. We're still figuring out how it's going to work. I mean, we have massive data worldwide that says 2.5 to 3 trillion people will be in the gig economy by 2025. And this is not a flying car or an autonomous date that doesn't mean anything. This is true data being worked from several different countries, and that's what they're seeing. That doesn't mean everybody will be working for DoorDash, because I've done a lot of research. We've talked about a lot of it here on the podcast. I mean, there's nursing apps out there. Some are not good. Some are great, where it allows nurses to travel and see family members and go somewhere for like 2 months and work there. So I think when I say that, I'm saying that a lot of things, because of the super speed of the advancement of technology integrated into the gig app economy, I think we're going to see a lot of work, even the work that you might be doing where you're like, this will never be gig work. I'm not saying all of it will, but I think we're going to see gig work coming into play in pretty much every sector. And we'll be talking about that, obviously, and following it. But this event is a big deal. And Stephanie and I had a conversation about how to approach it, and I'm going to share that with you today. And I would love to hear from you guys. You guys know how to reach out to me, steve@ridesharerodeo.com. So let's get into this conversation, and I will be back on the other side.
Oh, I mean, you should also to blindly invite. I mean, mention my name if you want. That Rick Vigil suggested it, but I think they'll be interested in anything that's empowering drivers. They're really big on starting a grown co-op here. So,
do you have a couple leads for me that or virtual introductions or anything that you could make? So I don't know if you got an email from me where I included Joel. Did you see one that included Joel?
Yeah, I did, and I don't think I've heard back from him yet.
Oh, really?
I can check. I can check my inbox again to see if there's anything I haven't seen yet.
Because, so just a quick thing on him. Joel owns, he's the CEO founder of Dumpling, and it's not even an app, Dumpling. Have you ever heard of Dumpling?
No.
So Dumpling isn't an app. It was to compete with Instacart and still is, but it's it's like a personal shopper where you set your own prices, you find your own clients. It does have a marketplace where people can search by zip code, but then they're more like, let's say you like eat paleo, then you could probably, the closest shopper might not be the best. You might want one twice as far because you'll see he specializes in paleo.
Right, and they kind of know what to shop for,
right?
And all
So
that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, exactly. So that person's gonna be better for you. Like I'm on Dumpling. I only have 5 clients. They're great though. But I mean, like when I do a Dumpling shop for them, so what I do is you can set up every store. You can set up little mom and pop butcher places, everything, and then you can do like odd jobs for them, and they're okay if you do it on the card. They finance you up to $2,000. It's just all above the board. They take a straight percentage on the processing fee, but even that's like less than I pay on like an Apple invoice.
Right.
You know, I mean, like, because they do
browsed on this when you first, CC'd me on the email with him. But yeah, so it looks really cool.
So here's the quick of that, because it's important. But I've known Joel for a long time, years before the pandemic, and he was just getting Dumpling's been around now for 5 or 6 years, and we both are outdoor enthusiasts. I do a lot of extreme sports, and he does different versions of things I do out in Seattle. So we've just kind of got this other kind of bond too. We have kids that are exactly the same age. We're 2 years apart. We've just always clicked, and I didn't even know. But he's on the Seattle committee, or I don't know if it's a committee or what. And this is where I should have written some of this language down. I was just so taken off guard because I was like, wait, why do I not know this? I've known you for 5 years. Because he was part of he wasn't part of the writing it, but he is in touch with 2 of the 3 people that wrote the Seattle legislation on a weekly basis. He sees them. The other one is no longer doing it. They stepped down. They've retired or something. But the one that everybody's, I mean, I know it's not what we're trying to do here in Colorado, what you were trying to do, but they were very successful. A lot of gig workers are happy with that model.
Yeah.
I know the California one gets questionable. Some people hate it. Some people love it, even on both sides. It's just that was the testing one. I'm not really sure it went real well. It seems to be the only people making out with money on that one is the state or all the lawyers from the state and Uber.
Right.
Seems like all the money's going to them, to be honest, because they just keep fighting it. But the Seattle one doesn't seem to be being fought at all. It seems like it was. And then I'm not sure how familiar you are, but Minneapolis just tried to do the same thing. It passed. And that governor did his first, is it a veto? Did his first veto ever in his career.
Well, so you keep saying Minneapolis. Are you talking, so when you talk about in Seattle, you're talking about a city ordinance, or you're talking about the state law?
I'm talking about whatever was just happened a month ago where it literally passed both sides. I mean, they did things like attach it to other bills and.
Yeah, Minnesota's was statutory state law.
Yeah, okay.
But the governor did veto it, which is
the Seattle, actually, I should say it that way. The Seattle one is state. It's Washington State.
Okay.
But it's different rate for Seattle.
Gotcha.
That's the only difference. But it is a Washington State. Yeah, that's it was supposed to start off as just rideshare drivers. They're just happy with it. And I guess, the gig companies aren't fighting it in court. And that just kind of speaks volumes to me. But again, I like your way. I like what you're doing better, not going after the dollar amount, because I think that in the end, that's just going to cause other problems, at least right now. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like you and I, when we've talked.
I think we can accomplish more by requiring the transparency that they are already obligated to be fulfilling.
And I haven't seen any other state
more empowerment for drivers to start our own thing if we want to, because if they have to compete with something that's basically operating at cost and giving all of the rewards to the people who do the work, then they're going to find that they can't compete with those prices.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
The other thing that I haven't seen it, I'm surprised I haven't seen it in any other state, because I've been watching all this legislation, but I'm surprised that one thing that you did that I loved why is no other state doing it is the customer side transparency. I think that's so crucial right now. And it seems like I'm always shocked. I'm because what I was going to say about the Minnesota one was, I don't like that it was shot down, because even both sides finally agreed to it. I know it was kind of ugly the way it all just was tied into other things and all this stuff. But to be honest, it seemed like they came to some conclusions. And I found it odd that my issue with it was I've been up into the Northwest a lot. I've been to Seattle quite a few times. It's 3 times the cost of living in Seattle as it is the Twin Cities. And so, I was why are you using the same numbers as Seattle? To me, that was the non-selling point. I'm you guys are asking for, it was literally, they wanted the exact same numbers as Seattle drivers get. And I'm you know how expensive it is to be in Seattle? It's too expensive to be homeless in Seattle.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's. I'm glad we're doing this. So I'm glad you got a whole. Sounds like we've got quite quite a variety of players in this space coming
we do.
in August.
We do. We have a couple guys from the Rideshare team, Sergio included. We have 5 guys from Moves Financial, which is empowering gig workers, getting them nothing. You can't. It's not payday stuff. We don't deal with that. But Moves does like a if you connect your accounts, like it's para endorsed, by the way, but if you connect your accounts, if you are working Uber, it's not a ton, but you earn shares of Uber as your deposits go through directly into their bank. And if anything happens to your vehicle, they will anything to get you back working again, they will loan you up to $1,500, which no other bank would do.
That's good.
Yeah, as long as you have a platform work history. And we're at Para working with them right now because this would be huge. Because really, it's just a bank. Their headquarters is in Toronto, Canada, and their bank is located in West Virginia. But it's just for gig workers, and we're looking at trying to help them with something we tried with Para, because with their help, it's probably doable. Is to get it so that, like, let's say you multi-app and you work 5 apps. If you connect them all, every night at midnight, all of your funds will be moved into your bank for free.
Oh, cool.
So you know how we all do the cash outs, and I know you can have the card with DoorDash or this, but forget all of it. You could just connect them to this, and every night at midnight they'll be deposited for free.
Oh, that's great.
Because
those are the kind of tools that, like, I think, drivers need more of. And, the problem becomes that the app companies really, and you guys know this, the app companies really like to find ways to, like, oh, you're not allowed to interact with our app like that.
Yep. So we've got Dumpling, we've got Curry, and Curry's been transparent since day one, and they're bringing a 4-man team. Moves is bringing their team 5 or 6. I mean, these are the gig apps that, like, we're not just looking to get anybody involved. I invited Curry and Dumpling because they're the only 2 100% transparent apps. Curry even pays well, and Dumpling, you have to get your own customers. It's like it's your own. It's not even like it's your own business. So if you don't want to go really put in the effort, it's probably not going to work for you. But if you do, if you land a couple people, I'm telling you, especially these days, word of mouth is huge. I've only landed 1 customer on Dumpling. I have 5. The other 4 came from the word of mouth. It's just like, hey, do you hate Instacart? Yeah, I got this great personal shopper,
Nice.
And literally they'll text me, and like now with 4 of them, I don't, and it makes me feel better too because I don't put it in the dirt. But they're like, hey, do you mind not putting the groceries outside and bringing them into the kitchen? I'll give you $10. I'm like, you don't even have to give me $10. I'm like, I would rather bring them into your kitchen than leave them in the mud.
Right. Well, and I think that's, this is why I think it's so much better for, like, let workers be in the driver's seat, right? Like, we know how to get it done really well.
Yeah.
The app company, they're like, oh, if you set foot inside the door, like, we'll deactivate you, right? Because now you've, like, violated their terms of service or whatever. It's just so much
Joel,
policing and micromanagement and everything. So.
Yeah, so Joel was the connection with Joel is he's trying to put you in touch with those 2 people because they knew of you and they knew of your legislation, and they even when Joel brought you up, they're like, oh, how do you know her? And he's like, I know Steve. And so, like, it all broke down, but they wanted to get in touch with you. They're like, they specifically said to him they have things that they think can help you.
Yeah, no, absolutely, that's great.
So you might need to make you might need to make that first email with Joel. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I sent him like one. I'll have to go digging through my inbox. I sent like one, like, hey, like, yeah, I'm the person. Let me know when you want to talk. And I haven't heard back from him, but sometimes I know how those things get buried. I'll just nudge it again, and when I find it, and see if he's seen it yet.
Yeah, because hopefully
I've got a preliminary meeting coming up next week with with my drivers and our lobbyists from AFL and everything to kind of start talking next week to kind of start talking like, okay, what's our next bill? What is it going to look like? The big concern right now, and this is why I think it's going to be so great to really like expand our reach and kind of have a more diverse base of support for the bill, is that we expect an industry-backed alternative to be introduced next year. Like that sounds like that's probably the big risk. Which just means that, it'll be like, DoorDash and TechNet and Uber and them will like come up with some, BS, really weak regulatory model that they're like, well, this is what would make us happy. And then they're going to like get bipartisan support for it. Who's going to be able to say that's bad, right? We love the sound of that.
Right.
And then that'll be the one that wins. And they get away with that. So they've done that with, say whatever, the metro districts did the same thing, right? Like the investor-owned metro districts, kind of shut down, legit reform that would have held them accountable, and passed like a fluff bill, that, it's kind of like, well, we finally have some guardrails around this issue, but it was written for the, the bad actors themselves. So I'm like, well, we don't want to repeat that with the gig bill. That's what we're trying to avoid. So we're getting started as of next week.
Yeah. I mean, when this idea first came about, it was all to arm you with as much real gig worker information as we can. Cause the day before is GigCon. And that is that's Pedro's thing, but there's a lot of people coming up who are very veteran that I'm inviting. So what we're doing is inviting people to the 2-hour town hall at Wash Park Grill, but afterwards we have it till 5. So from like 2 to 5, it's like free food and drinks and everything for anybody that went to GigCon and whatever. So there will be gig workers coming. At that point, it can become, you could hang around. We would love for you to, talk to gig workers and obviously bring your significant other. And if you think there's people that we should be asking that I'm not going to think of, please let me know.
Sure. Yeah. Well, have we extended an invite to CIDU leaders yet?
Is that the Colorado Independent
Drivers United?
He writes a really good pieces on the gig economy and its flaws. And he had a podcast for years.
Yeah. No, I think we were following each other on Twitter when I was still looking at that.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, he's big on Twitter. He's big on Twitter. He's going to be there with me. And so I think he's subscribed to that Colorado Driving Independent, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And so he might even know somebody over there. I'll ask him. Again, that's why I was asking you, would it be better coming from you? I don't care who asks who what. I just want to get people there.
Sure. Well, I can for sure I'll send an email over to, a couple of my organizers with CIDU and CCU and that and let you know if you want to. Can you actually, let me double check here what information I have about the event that you've already sent me and see if it's enough to just forward to them.
No, it's not yet.
Yeah, do you want to send me something that's just got kind of like a breakdown, like what you're doing with the event, where and when, basics, because then I have something I can forward to them.
Maybe part of it, we're going to at least talk about some other states' legislation, but quickly, so we're not wasting too much time, because it'll all become applicable by the end of this. But then why Colorado's was different, the driver and customer transparency, wrongful deactivations. But then, I think that some of the like bullet points, I've just been starting a list, are like discussing transparency, deactivations, not just like wanting to get wrongful deactivations be able to be challenged, but the topic of deactivations, and IC versus employee, what that could mean, the DOL rule change. These are totally out of order. I don't know. And how that could be affected now that it's been pushed to October 1st. It's going to be state by state interpretation, other states, legislative successes and failures. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I said on the piece I did yesterday for Para, I said, I was playing with this a bit, but I think that I kind of stand by it because I think it'll be meaningful to people who feel a little lost in all this. We are not going to change politics, but we surely need to make sure our elected politicians are properly armed and informed to understand our position.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because I'm starting to be on this new kick where I'm feeling like the lawmakers really have no clue what we're doing.
No, they don't. And I've been, And even so, like, I still sometimes when I'm like, oh God, actually, I don't know how this looks on the rideshare side because I do delivery. So I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I have to like, well, I got to talk to my rideshare guys then about how this looks on Lyft, how this looks on Uber. But frequently, I just kind of found that like people in there just have no idea how easy it is to manipulate people on these apps, and they just kind of don't. And I've been trying to like really tried to make the case. I'm like, just as a consumer, think about all the ways that the things on your smartphone are misleading you, right? To try to get you to buy something you don't actually want, to get you to subscribe to something that you thought you were just signing up for a trial, whatever it is, right? Like, you get that as a consumer. Now imagine that that's where your workplace is and how they, right? And I think it's starting to make sense to people, but I think that regulatory capture risk is going to be the big one, because the companies are going to come and say, here's what we'll agree to, and run their own bill. And it won't be that hard to do. I've already got a lobbyist for GoPuff saying she wants to like meet with me so that like so that her client can start to get into my head and figure out, what they're going to like. I will not be meeting with my opposition first. Thank you. So it's coming. It's coming.
Oh, yeah.
And everything that we'll be talking about here is going to have to be a little bit of defense against that and anticipation. So.
Also, I don't know, I know you were familiar, but I don't know if you know driverrights.org, our secondary parasite that basically just talks about what you're talking about. We've been bot checked now, and we have over 60,000 verified signatures.
Oh, that's great.
So like, being bot check's important. It's kind of like when the rule change happened and people could go in and remember they had that public comment period, and then they had to go send the bots through, and they're like, okay, 2/3 of them are bots. And then it left me going, well, okay, do I get to see which ones were bots, or did you just remove them? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm glad you do a bot check, but like, what if you're just throwing away important stuff that wasn't a bot? I don't know. I'm not trying to go down all these rabbit holes. I'm instead of trying to fix the politicians, I guess is where I'm trying to put my head now, is I think it's the most important thing we can do is just really make them understand what we're doing, how it all works. They don't know. And that we don't mind some things, but we need to get some other things in check. That's it.
Right.
But I don't know. I'm starting to hear too often, I think, and a lot of it probably, I really try and not watch YouTube. I put some stuff up there, but I focus on my audio podcast because that has I have a huge listening there. And I've been doing that a lot longer. And to be honest, I'm seeing a lot on YouTube that, I don't know. I feel like it's always misinformation, but I feel like it's really, really reaching misinformation now.
Oh, it's too bad. And it's just the whole array of like social media apps and kind of how we're all getting shuffled around in them makes it difficult. And I think this is so much the strategy of big tech, right? Because they get to control the spaces, and same with all of our apps that we work on. If they control the space and they control the information, and I don't know if you and I ever talked about this, but one of the points at which the tech lobby really pulled out all the stops to fight us on our bill was over destination transparency. And I just thought how interesting that was. That was the big thing that they were just kind of like, okay, like this is the one that definitely cannot happen, because the fact that they know where you are at all times, and that they know where where customers are, and like that's a really critical piece of information with them. Like, it is powerful to them that they have that and you don't as the driver.
Why?
Because clearly, like, that was the thing. It was very valuable to them. Well, they use a lot. I think they use a lot of that to determine their surge pricing, to determine.
Oh, of course they do, because.
There was that thing that was out for a bit about, like, when I think I'm getting charged more when my battery is low. Like, it knows when your battery, it knows everything.
Yeah.
It knows everything that the app has permission to look at.
The rideshare, Chris.
It's an algorithm. It's not like us.
Chris from the Rideshare guy has been saying lately, he's like, look, and he's actually very, very smart, good guy. He said, listen, he said, if you're taking a rideshare ride or you're doing something, he's like, and I know that some people might say the opposite, like, well, turning on and off like that's going to screw it up for you. But he's like, listen, if you're taking a ride, he's like, turn off accepting new rides. He's like, do not let the system know you're going there and that you're going to be able to take a ride. It will help the prices rise for the drivers that are in that area and not be counting you into the queue before you're there. Even though they know you're going there, if you click, I'm done after this trip, then it's not worth it to them to go, okay, we can't count them into the queue.
Oh, interesting.
So he actually is making a point that actually is working. One thing the rideshare guy's really good at is testing 5 markets with 20 drivers in each. Actually, I guess he represents all sides these days, but he just puts out enough content where it's covered. But Chris always hits on it pretty well. And I think he's onto something there, like it kind of goes in what you're saying that, that they're so concerned about knowing where we're going. But that kind of tells me like, well, who would care if I know where I'm going to? I'm still going to go there if I want the trip.
Well, that's the thing, Steve. We're going to break this down to like the fundamentals of this whole industry, and why it can be so powerful, but it isn't going well for us. And that's the fact that we as drivers are the ones providing all of the overhead. It's our labor, it's our vehicles, it's our time, it's our upkeep, it's all of it. The only thing that the app company is doing is shuffling around the information, and so the technology exists for us to do that in a pretty just enough to get the job done, right? Like you're like this, like the your buddy's saying dumpling.
Yeah.
That doesn't need to turn a huge profit on the part of it that isn't producing anything.
Right.
So once again, I think it's just sort of like it tends to be like classic labor struggle. Honestly, where like the people who just like own the stuff but aren't doing the work are the ones making off with all the money, while we like work harder and harder and harder trying to make And it's like, dude, it's already our money. It's already we're generating the value. We're generating the wealth. Why is it getting taken away by someone who's not actually doing the work? Well, because they have all the information in their hands. That's why they don't want to share it, and that's why they don't want to disclose it. And they thrive in this, kind of little black box off to the corner where they're like, well, you can't look at our methods for determining how much we're going to charge you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm all for the company being.
We can tackle it, but I think at the root of the problem.
Yeah. See, I feel like it's just too much. People like you and I really going after this portion, whereas even the gig companies are trying to get their drivers to go after themselves. The companies, they're like, yeah, come after us, because they don't want people learning about legislation, and none of us really want a ton of it. But to be honest, we're at some point where some definitions need to be made, and they don't want the drivers to know that. They want you to be mad at the apps. They're fine with that.
They wanted to think of it like it's a consumer decision, like, oh, I just won't work on DoorDash anymore, I'll work on Grubhub, and
exactly.
I've got like a troll that started following me around on Twitter, doing exactly that. Like, the real problem is that DoorDash is a bad actor and you should be driving for Grubhub. Like, no, the real problem is that these things are poorly defined.
Yeah.
And so any company that steps into this space is going to find a way to take advantage of you, unless and until we correct the structure in which they're operating, because they have it's not like the companies have any problem whatsoever again, they're going to run a bill. They're going to do it next year. They're going to write what they want to run, and find themselves a willing carrier for it. And they act like they don't like regulation. They love regulation. They want it to be done their way, not what benefits consumers and the workers themselves. That's how they're going to do it. So we have to get in that game.
Yeah, but they also have to realize, like, at some point we got to come to some agreements, even if, like, one side always has to give a little more and then you take on others. But they got to realize at some point we have to come to some agreements. Like, I'm starting to get really blown away with how much legal money goes out. Like, dude, just the thought of how much they spend on legal alone with things that they could tackle. I'm like, dude, this is the waste of money. This is ridiculous.
Oh, don't even be started on how many millions of dollars they dropped into those ballot initiatives for like the wine and grocery stores and alcohol delivery and all that stuff. DoorDash and Instacart spent millions and millions of dollars on that. And it's sort of like, oh, I'm sorry, you can't afford to pay us per mile. You can't afford,
or you don't make a profit either.
Right.
You don't make a
right.
profit, but you have 8,000 lawyers.
What are y'all for? Right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. For lawyers and for, I guess whoever's, whoever owns their holdings, they're getting something.
Sure.
But it just, the whole thing's turned into such a scam. So I'm glad we're finding more agreement across platforms, across industries. And I'll just kind of like have you put a pin in this and kind of, keep it in the back of your mind. I don't have a lot to tell about it yet, but we are starting to find that there are other industries that are facing appification.
I bet. I already know of some.
Yeah. It turns out to be stuff like, it's like veterinary care. It's nursing staff.
I was just going to say there's
RNs and whatnot, CNAs.
I was just going to tell you there's a nursing app that's out of Florida that's amazing. And they did amazing work during the pandemic. And now there's like 20 others that are horrible. Just screwing you over. But there's this one company that did it first. That's awesome.
Right.
It's just so sad. Like 20
that it's a good way to like take a lot of money and not pay the people doing the work.
It's just right. It's just mind blowing to me that one company came up with this idea, did it right. The nurses loved it. It gave them a way to go travel and see other people during the pandemic, and work different places. And then it just blows my mind that 20 other companies decided, hey, let's do that. Okay, well, let's see how you do that. And every one of them decided, let's do it dirty and wrong.
Yeah.
Like, why is there not even one out of the 20 that said, let's do it like these guys? Like, I just didn't get it. Like, they were making money. They were doing it right. So even to like an investor, it should have looked good.
I know. But, we get this happens so often, right? Especially in tech where it's like, the good idea is there, right? And it can accomplish a lot of good and it can make money. It just doesn't have to it doesn't have to be like a whole cash cow. But like as soon as, some opportunist finds a way to start blowing that open, they will. So, again, granted, I'm a lawmaker. I ran for public office because I want to make laws. So obviously I'm like, yep, change the regulations. That's my gig. That's what we're doing here. So,
and I used to be completely against that, but how else? I mean, it's not even defined sector now. I've been an independent contractor since 1996, like traditional.
Yeah.
And this needs to be, like people have said, third worker classification. I don't know about that, but it needs to be a hybrid IC, and they need to define it.
Right. Well, and kind of what I'm brainstorming for our next bill is to honestly just like sidestep most of that issue. Again, like we did this last year, but with a broader focus. Sidestepping the classification issue and just looking at like, okay, fine, you're an independent contractor, but here are your rights as a contractor. You still have them. You don't sign them away just because you're contracting for individual jobs instead of for employment status. And especially when you work on an application and that's how your jobs are offered to you. There should be rights that you have in those interactions. Just because I know that as we've been discussing, the opportunity for abuse is so huge.
I'm impressed, Stephanie. Like sometimes my passion gets the better of me, so I go after it all. But I'm impressed that you're able to go, no, let's put that off for a minute, because really, fine, let us be ICs, because I hear what you're saying. You're right. But I just get ahead of myself and get mad sometimes. So,
well, it's infuriating, right? Like I think we're all frustrated with it, and understandably so. But I just kind of, I don't know. I think I just can take this philosophy to doing this work. It's kind of like, okay, like if a tool is powerful, or if like like the app-based employment, it's a powerful thing. It has a lot of opportunity. It has a lot of capacity to like move around people and goods and services. And so it's a powerful entity, just like a factory. It's a really powerful entity. People didn't used to have that. The thing to do here is not to smash it to pieces because we don't like how it's changed our work. Well, we need to find a way to make it fit into our lives in a more humane way and use its power in it for a good thing, instead of just to make like, some guy in the corner office $10 billion more this year. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, he doesn't need that. We need that. So, it's about wielding it in a good way and redirecting it so that it works for us. And some of this urge to be like, well, then we maybe just need to make all of these people employees, or we just need to ban these apps, or like, no, that's not how human beings operate. It's out of the bottle now. We all know we like this stuff. We all know we're going to use it.
Yeah.
So it needs to be socialized properly, right? Like it needs to come into society in a healthy and safe way, and not be weaponized.
Yeah, so, I agree. So I think the next step for me, I should put out an email to you on just my notes. I'm looking at this like 2-page iNotes right now. That's just a horrid mess, but I could bullet point it together into something for you, and send it off to you, and then kind of maybe start to put some names together so we don't forget anybody important that should absolutely at least be invited, if not attend.
Yeah.
I know that he won't, but I would like a public. I would like to. I don't know if you know how to do this. I would like to publicly get Priola a certified mail or something that endorses that he got the invite and didn't show.
I can reach out to him and.
Or could he show? I mean, here's the way some people have been like, what is this? Like, get him? I'm like, no, dude, this is a town hall. If you come, you're going to be respected for showing up and speaking your view. I don't care what your view is. I mean, I do, but I'd rather have it all. That's the point of this. Let's get it all out there. You know, I mean,
right.
You know, I guess you know the guy a little. Is there any chance he'd come?
And Senator Senator Malika said they're like, no, like I really am open to it. I want to work on this issue. I want to. So like, I mean, those two guys are like the first people we want to. You want to make sure that you include, if at all.
Right. So
they said they would. They said they'd talk to us about it. So
okay. Well, is that something that while I'm handling all this other stuff, are those two people you could approach and say, hey, you said you'd talk about this. This is going to be a forum. And it's not, I think a lot of people there are going to be they're not biased to any side, because I think they're going to come in going, I'm not really sure what this is. So it's going to be this amazing learning experience. Yeah. Do you think that's something you could bring them into?
Yeah, no, I think so. Type up those people.
Okay.
Points for me if you would. And
I will.
It doesn't have to be super like in depth or anything. Shorter's better. And I can certainly, for each of them, like give them a call. If I can't get them on the phone, and like send them that email as well, so that they know it's coming. I would hope that if they say like, oh yeah, I'm open to it, I want to talk about it, that they'll come to something like this, because it's not the same as like a a private closed meeting where they're going to get ambushed with a bunch of demands, right?
No, not at all. In fact,
if they blow that off, then we have an issue.
That's what I was just about to say. If they won't come to this, I don't see how you're ever going to get anywhere with them, because this is like this is a place. This is a safe
interim, especially. Sometimes there's an availability issue. But
right? Yeah. No. I just mean like if they are, and and they just like, I don't want to go. Like there'd be no reason to not come to this. There's nobody against you. In fact, a lot of these people aren't really sure what's going on, so you should be there if you're going to vote for it or shoot things down, come and tell us why. I mean, they'll have the floor. Nobody's going to interrupt them.
Right. Right.
And they can stay as long as they want. I probably have no problem having a drink with one of them, even though I'm not real happy with what they did.
Right.
I mean, it might give me a chance to say something that I probably wouldn't have said otherwise.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing bad, but just
part of my suspicion when I was talking about like I think the industry is going to bring their own bill. I could see them tapping one of these senators to run that, and I think it'll be interesting to kind of have them on the record somewhere. Have somebody get like some comments, some clips, something of them like acknowledging what the issue is, agreeing to do something or another about it, like being in that space and hearing directly from drivers and from, other players in the industry. So if we do find ourselves in a situation in session next year where they're saying like, well, I met with DoorDash and Uber and this is what they want and everything, that like we've got them on, we've got them on record that they've heard from both sides and they went with the companies instead of the drivers. Right.
Yeah.
Like, I think that story arc is important to like be prepared to close that loop if it comes to it. But ideally, we're going to find that as we make the case for a full transparency bill, deactivation reform, everything we asked for in the other bill, and probably then some. But it's going to be impossible for any decent legislator to vote for the company's bill instead.
Yeah.
Just make that really painful, make it really uncomfortable. So.
I mean, and this is, I don't know, I guess one last thing, and then I will get you on email later today, but is if they weren't to get on board, I'm not saying a threat to them either, but just to have, because we're looking for all the different opinions, wouldn't there be somebody from the right who would come on and talk about this? And because they're like, oh yeah, I'm all for being against it, so I'll be there, which would make them come, because it'd be like, wait, I want to explain myself.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you? I don't know. I'm just thinking there must be some people on the right who are like, no, I hate that bill, and here's why.
Right. Oh, with ours or with the company's bill?
I'm just saying, yeah, with the bill that they went against your bill. There must be some people who are like, oh, I'm not hiding from the fact that I was against that bill.
Right. Yeah, that's hard. That's hard to call, because I think the fact that it got shut down in committee meant that there weren't a lot of eyes on it on the Senate side.
That's what I was. So not knowing that actual process. Yeah, not knowing that actual process. Yeah. Never having been through it. That's what I was going to ask you. I was going to say, because it didn't get, because I know that a million things come across a desk in a day, and they're really only looking at what they need to vote on and deal with in the right now. Was it at a point where they didn't even see your bill?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the, especially in the Senate, right? And because they've got a whole other culture over there. It's really strange how different they are. And I think people said that before I came to this office, and I was shocked at how true it was, actually. In the Senate, I think there was sort of a quiet understanding that, like, that bill was sputtering out because somebody wanted to kill it. And it kind of didn't matter to them who. It was just sort of like, then I'm not going to think about it if it's not going to come to the floor for a vote. We all have a limited bandwidth, right? We're not, we don't necessarily have a ton of energy to be focused on things that are outside of our area of focus, or that aren't coming to our committees, right? We have a committee system for a reason. Some people should be, there's every bill needs to get vetted somewhat more precisely than just its vote on the floor. I'm not like looking intently at like ag and natural resources bill, for instance. I'm looking at transit and housing stuff and local gov and energy, right?
Yeah.
So, because those are my focus areas. So if people didn't have that, if it wasn't coming through their committee, like they weren't going to see it, then they just kind of didn't. They were like, well, kind of like the whisper around the building is that like that bill's not doing well and it's probably going to get killed. So,
and that is why everybody should be at the town hall on August 5th in Denver, Colorado. If you are interested, please email me, steve@ridesharerodeo.com. And hopefully everybody got something important out of this conversation. This is going to be quite the event, you guys. Email me. I will keep us updated. Until next week, be safe, earn smart, and we'll see you back here next week on Rodeo.